Good afternoon, guys. At the beginning of each year, it's important that we look at our goals and refresh our strategies on what we want to work on throughout the year. And so, one of the things that we look at is the data and figuring out where we need to improve on and how we're going to do that. And so, we're going to talk today about individualized instruction and closing the gaps in math. Now, before I start that, I want to talk about our pluses. What are we doing right? And that's our reading data. And so the data shows that according to our TAPR results from 2016 to 2017, our campus has greatly improved up to 76%. We're actually in 2018 above the state percentage, which is 74%. And this is on approaches grade level or above. So we've made tremendous progress since 2016 and making sure that we're closing those gaps and that our students are improving every year. The same goes for the data looking at our 2016 and 2017 data in our reading scores on MEETS grade level or above. You can see right here where the campus has improved from 2016, where we had 35% of our students meeting that grade level or above, up here to just a little under 44%. And then we're going to come over here into 2018. We're actually above state standards again. Where the state average was 46 and we were at 47% right there. In our master's reading, we've gone down a little bit since 2017 into 2018, but it was a small marginal decrease right there. We went from 20% in 2017 to 18% in 2018. And so not a huge decrease, but we are still above the district average, and we're right there in par with our state average. However, looking at similar data in our math section, this is going to be our delta. So we're doing all these great things in reading, and we're going to see how we can improve and change those things and bring them over those strategies with us in our math area. But first, let's look at that same information and what the data is showing us. So our 2016 and 2017 TAPR data shows right here that we started off really strong in 2016. We were well above our state, the state percentage of students, well above the district. However, as we progressed to 2017, there's this huge drop off for us all of a sudden. And we're going to be at 73%, well below the district and state percentages. And then we're also going to look at 2018, where we made some minimal growth from 73 to 74%, but still well below that state and district percentage. And this is on math approaches grade level or above. When we look at our math MEETS grade level or above, we're going to see the same statistics, especially in 2018, where we're still well below the state and district percentages of students that met grade level or above. Now, when we look at the math at master's grade level, in 2017, we were fairly on par with the district, but here in 2018, we've actually dropped, and we're at a little bit less than we were last year. We're going to be at 14%, where we were at 15% last year. So we're not making those same gains that we wanted to. So we can't just look at the data and see that there's clearly a difference between reading and math. We need to dig a little deeper and look who is affected by this. So Bowie is comprised of 256 Hispanic students. However, in 2018, our white students, 218 of them, outscored Hispanic students in every domain. And at approaches grade level, only 65% of our Hispanic students versus 80% of our students who are considered white passed that part. And then it gets a little bit worse as we go up to at MEETS grade level or above. For at MEETS, we only had 25% of our Hispanic students, where we still had 54% of white students. And then at the master's grade level, 10% of those 256 students were considered at master's that are Hispanic students, and 21% of the 218 white students that we have at Bowie were at the master's grade level. Now, only 38%, that's 207 of our population, which is 547, our economically disadvantaged students scored in the meets or master domain. So what's the difference in reading versus math? Why do we see the growth that we're having in reading and we're not seeing that same growth translate into math? Well, part of the difference is going to be our teaching strategies. Within the last 2 years, there's been a big district implementation of Fontes and Pinnell, the guided reading groups, and the implementation of that. We've had more resources made available by the district where they did buy into the guided reading groups. They bought into additional BAS testing to check reading levels. We kind of changed the way we taught reading, where instead of doing this whole group teacher-centered instruction, it became more of a student-centered, and we really set goals up for our students, and they were working on meeting their next level. There were more hands-on activities. Students were in charge of their own learning. The next thing that we're going to see is that our math TEKS were revised majorly in 2014 and 2015, and it had the creation of some gaps when we had some TEKS that moved back. So, for instance, we had certain TEKS that were considered second grade TEKS prior to 2015. And those TEKS are going to get moved down to the first grade level and so on, and it's just this domino effect. Well, over those years, these gaps have occurred for each of our students, and we've not been able to close those gaps. So our goal is to figure out how can we close these gaps and help our students achieve their goals. So one of the great things is that we can look at our own instruction, our strategies that we're doing in reading, and see how we can implement them into our math learning. So we're going to start using individualized instructions, which is basically guided reading for math. It's guided math. We're going to focus on pulling the string. Are we pulling our lowest level students, our ones that are middle achieving, and then our highest, are we all pulling them along? Are they all making a year's worth of growth? And that's what we're looking at. Are they learning what they need to learn at their own level? We want to make sure that we're not stagnating our highs, and we also want to make sure that we're reinforcing those things that our lowest achieving students need. And I like to call them our striving students and our thriving students. And so then we're also going to look at growth versus grades, where we looked at more traditional grade set, these A, B's, and C's. We want to look at more of our growth. Are students making a year's worth of progress in the time that we have them? And so how do we do that? So individualized instruction is kind of where we're going to head with our math instruction this year. And so what I'd like us to do is first we need to understand what individualized instruction is. So it's tailored learning to a student's strengths. It's co-constructed goals where you and the student are coming up with goals and setting them together. This isn't just going to be the teacher sets the goal and that's what we're going to try to attain. This is going to be definitely a group, you and the student working together to construct these. It's going to be flexible pacing for each of the students. Your ones that are thriving students in a certain skill, they're going to need to go ahead and move on. Where if you have a student that's striving in a particular area, those students are going to need to hang back and stay in that skill until they've mastered it. And it's so important in math, as you know, we lay down layers of foundations, and each of those math skills build onto that. And so if we can patch up some of those cracks and those gaps that we have, then the student's able to be more successful in some of the more difficult TEKS and skills. It's also going to be differentiated content and instruction for each student. I should see, if I walk into your classroom, for instance, a group working on something different than the group that you have at the carpet. They're going to be on 2 different levels, and that's okay. It's what that student needs. It's all about voice and choice. Your students have a voice in what they're learning, what they feel like they're struggling with, and then they have a choice. How do they think they learn best? And so when we have all of those things in place, our students benefit. They become confident thinkers, their higher order thinking skills improve, the teachers are able to connect to students. This is going to be that culturally responsive teaching where you're making those relationships and those connections. And not only is this going to just help your instruction, it's going to help your students' achievement. This is going to help behavior too. So this is across the board a great strategy to use in the classroom. We're also going to develop students' talents. We're going to see where their talents are and how we can grow them and make them aware of them so that they feel supported and confident too. So let's look at aligning the curriculum. So how are you going to come up with the curriculum that you need to teach the students? Before, you're going to need to refer to the district year at a glance. But this is not your Bible. This is not your holy grail of stuff. You're also going to need to you're going to need to compare that with your TEKS resource year at a glance too, and see kind of how those align. And you're going to have to compare the two to construct a new game plan that's individualized for each of those students, for those groups to come up with, so that we're moving at a fairly good pace, but not just coming up with random TEKS at different times to teach them. We're going to look at what's best for the student and what's kind of expected of us as teachers. So how do we implement individualized instruction? Well, let's look at our action steps first, and we're going to it's going to take time for us to go through this and kind of transform our strategies and our teaching instructions. And so we're going to put first things first, and we're going to begin with the end in mind. And we're going to start with assessment through unit tests. We have our MAPS testing available to us. That's going to be at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. We're also going to have our Go Math module tests, and those are going to be weekly to bi-weekly, depending on how fast you're moving through those tests. That's going to be K through 2nd. You have your Sharon Wells testing if you're doing Sharon Wells in 3rd through 5th. And we're eventually going to try to take our training wheels off, so to say, and move towards a metacognitive assessment where we've taught our kids about the thinking process, that metacognitive skill, and we're working that aloud. And so the students are able to see how they're thinking about this problem, how to work it, and we're able to get assessments that way through our small groups where we can see, well, they're missing a step here when they're thinking out loud about this, and the student will be able to hopefully recognize this as well, and that will be a great assessment tool for you. Based off of those several different things that you're going to use, you're going to set up goals, and these goals are going to be formulated as a result of assessments, student input, and interests. And the students are given feedback frequently, guys. This is so important. We're not just going to set up a goal once and then leave it forever through the year. These goals need to be ever changing. They need to be evolving with the student, and they also need to be obtainable. We don't want to make really unattainable goals and then students become disappointed or give up because they've not been able to meet those goals. So we want to make sure that we're providing that structure for them when we're making goals. The next action steps that we're going to look at are the creation of groups. And so you're going to have to create groups because it's a little bit unrealistic for us to think that you're going to teach every single individual student. And so a great tool would be to create groups based on similar interests, strengths, and needs. And so then during this group time, you'll have a teacher table time. And this is very much starting to sound like guided reading, so this should be very familiar to you. But we're going to facilitate student exploration of new concepts. And then we're going to skills extend understanding previously introduced concepts. So we're going to just strengthen those ones that they've already learned, make sure that they're still on target. We want to go ahead and cycle those skills back around. But then we're going to make sure that we are understanding our new concepts. We're going to introduce the new ones. And they're going to be at different levels, guys. Your pacing is going to be really flexible here. So you might be introducing multiplication to one group of students where another group of students might still be on 3-digit addition and subtraction, and that's okay. We're also going to be creating academic TEKS aligned stations, guys. This is huge. So you're going to come up with, and these don't have to be cutesy. These can be so easy. Some cards, a deck of cards. They're doing comparing. Nothing has to be cutesy. You don't have to go that way if that's not the route you want. It really is going to be on student need. That's the biggest part of this, is student need and student choice. Giving your students multiple ways to learn one skill that's hands-on. If that's what they learn best, is it something that they can listen to? Is it something that they can see? It's making sure that they have all of those options to rotate through while you're meeting with that small group, teaching them a teaching table. We also need to be conferencing with students. That's going to be when you're making those goals, where you're reassessing them. It's also going to be a great time to go over student created portfolios. And so this is going to be your evidence, where you and the students sit down and you look at what we've done over the course of a week, over the course of the 6 weeks, and the student's going to pull what they're proud of, and they might also want to pull things that they're still working on. That's great. That's that self-realization that, hey, I'm still working on this, but I'm proud of the achievement I have made. And that's going to be where you're going to reevaluate those goals, needs, and grouping. So your groups are going to be constantly changing depending on what your students need. So how exactly does this look in the classroom? Students should be working in small groups. So if I was to come into your classroom, or any of administration was to come into your classroom, we would see that the students are in small groups and they're engaged, working throughout the classroom. There's different skills going on. Student voice and interests are seen. It's not just one choice of station. So if you have a particular skill such as multiplication or comparing numbers, there's not just that one choice. There are several options, and students have a choice of technology. They have the choice of hands-on. Their interests are seen. So if you happen to have a group of boys that really loves basketball, then perhaps you came up with a basketball shooting station with some math facts, and that would be a great idea. And so then we begin to see the change of being teacher-centered instruction like we were before, and we're going to that more student-centered instruction like we had seen in our previous reading groups, that guided reading that we've introduced within the last couple years. And so one of the quotes that I really liked that I had read was that the teacher is no longer the keeper, the dispenser, and the tester of knowledge, instead being part of a community. The teacher shares in the process, acting as a model facilitator and at times a co-learner with your students. And this is going to build that relationship well beyond just that teacher-centered. And it's going to put your students in charge of their own learning. So how are we going to help you guys? Where are we going to check up on you? Where are we going to see where we need to assess and fix some different things as we go along? Because there's going to be a learning curve, and there's going to be some speed bumps and some issues. And so how do we go from there? So we're going to have PLCs. Those are going to be a professional learning community meetings per grade level on Mondays during planning times. And this will be a time for you to meet with the IC, the AP, and the principal, depending on who's holding those meetings on Mondays, and talk about how things are going with your guided math groups, your individualized instruction, and let us know your wins, things that you're concerned about, and that way we can meet and kind of be on the same page. This will also be a great time to discuss vertical alignment, and so we'll be meeting with each grade level as we go, and so if there's a concern, we see a gap coming from first to second, where can we fix that gap in first? And so this will be a great opportunity for an open dialogue with administrations and with the other grade levels. We're also going to be having professional development on guided math provided on Wednesday faculty meetings once a month, where we're going to have some people come in from the district and talk about guided math, but also just some people who have already implemented this within the district to kind of show us how their guided math groups or their individualized instruction works. The goal setting with the students, that's going to be a great way for you to get feedback from your students on how they think that the change has gone with math, and also getting information and assessments back. Are we seeing that improvement? Are we seeing that growth during the year? Staff observation. So not only are we going to be in your classroom as administrators, but we're also going to give you guys the opportunity where we come in, we watch your class for you, and you can go and observe another staff member implement individualized instruction in the classroom. So we learn best from each other, and so that gives you a great opportunity to observe other people using individualized instruction. And then also doing the beginning, middle, and end of year progress checkups through the MAPS assessments provided by the district are going to be another way that we can tell, okay, are we headed in the right direction? Is this individualized instruction working with us, or working for our students throughout the year? And are we seeing significant growth that we can say, yes, the individualized instruction is working for us? And this is going to be a learning curve for everybody as we go forward, but I know that you guys are a great group of staff, and so we'll be able to implement this on the highest level, and we'll be teaching other schools about it before we know it. And so I just appreciate everyone's help on this.